Wicked problems, big world problems. We all know them, and we believe we found a new way to deal with them. I'm very happy to be here today to share with you the idea we have developed during the last couple of months. We have named the idea Be Collective. With Be Collective, we want to set up a new organization form with a swarm of people who organize themselves around the wicked problems of today. For me, this idea probably started to develop itself when I was just born and lying in the arms of my father. My father is a professor in politics, international relations, and every day he told me about Marx, capitalism, how business and government are interconnected with each other, and how people with the urge for power destroy things in this world. That triggered for me a way to start thinking about alternatives, how we could organize ourselves differently to do it better. You can imagine that we didn't always agree upon each other, like a father and a daughter normally do not always agree. So when I was in puberty, we had a lot of fights on a dinner table where we were strongly arguing with each other, and it was so strong that my brother and my mother left, and we were still fighting on the dinner table. And the most important thing where we didn't agree upon was that my father strongly believes in the power of a good government with a good set of rules and everybody obliging to these rules. While I myself more strongly believe in the capacity and the capabilities of people to organize themselves, and the freedom and the creativity and the happiness that comes with that. My father often calls me an idealist, and I think I am. But sometimes, when I'm doing things, I get really discouraged and sad and angry that things doesn't work out the way I want them to. And then my father comes to me and he refers to a sentence Gramsci often used. I'm a pessimist because of intelligence, but an optimist because of will. As a pessimist looking at the world today, I can say I'm worried. I have two little daughters. One is 1 year old, one is 3 years old. And I'm often wondering if they are able to grow up in the same way and enjoying our planet Earth in the same way as we are doing now. We live in a time of crises, the food crisis, the migrant crisis, and the growing sub-Saharan, which is causing all kinds of problems with water for the people in Africa. And for me, it's clear, the way we are organized today, we are not going to solve these crises in the speed which is necessary. But now comes the optimist in me. I think I'm convinced that we can change the game. In 2003, I was in Ghana, in a small village, with people living there in clay huts, and they didn't have any electricity or running water, but they had great ideas, and they shared that with me, and we talked a lot under the mango tree. And while I was talking with them, I realized that they don't have the opportunities that I have, born in the Western world, and in terms of education, having access to the university. And that gave me a very harsh feeling of responsibility. I felt responsible for them. And in that village, they have a big problem with water. They can only grow 2 crops, cassava and maize. And that's because they don't have the knowledge how they can harvest water in an efficient way. And I kept on thinking, like, if I could connect these people in this village with people from the University of Wageningen or any other university people who already have these technical solutions, imagine that could solve their problem within a couple of months, maybe. So when I was working at the 1% Club, we did a lot of this idea of collective intelligence, bringing people together with different backgrounds and let them solve problems or make business models for people in other parts of the world. And what I always saw that there comes with, when you put this team of people with different backgrounds together, you see some sort of energy and happiness, which is really interesting and gives a lot of creative ideas. So in the beginning of this year, my business partner, Stephanie Vermeulen, and me thought we want to do this, organizing people with different backgrounds, around the world problems of today. So we started drinking coffee a lot with all kinds of people in our networks to talk and exchange ideas. And then we met Felix. Felix is one of the founders of Seeds to Meet, a network of individual entrepreneurs. And he came up with the idea of swarms and swarm intelligence. And swarms and the way a swarm is organized is very interesting. If you take, for example, the bee. There was a biologist in the United States who did an experiment. He placed 5 boxes around a colony of bees to find out how they make these complex decisions together. So he waited and sat in the bushes to see what's happening. So he noticed that the bees were flying, a couple of bees were flying out to these boxes to investigate them. And when they came back to the colony, they did a sort of dance for the other bees. And the more enthusiastic they were about that place, the more stronger their dance was. So the bees, the other bees, got also enthusiastic and went along with these bees. And then suddenly, at one box, there was a big swarm of bees. And then at a certain quotum, I think it was 15, they said, okay, we're going to make a choice for that box. They all went back, and a new colony was started. So there's something really interesting. These bees are organized, because they make these complex decisions without a boss. They do it together. And they make these decisions based on votes. So the more bees, that hive it will become. And they decided on what is best for the whole colony. Imagine what that would mean for people. So we thought, okay, we're going to start up a swarm with people. But then we thought, okay, what will be the starting point for the people in the swarm to work on these world problems? So we continued drinking coffee with all kinds of people. And then I met the director of an institute connected to the Erasmus University. The institute is called the Partnerships Resource Center. And she told me that they just had developed a new methodology to work on wicked problems. And wicked problems are very, very complex problems who involve a lot of stakeholders and cannot be solved by one person or one organization. What they do is they organize a wicked problem plaza. So they gather 20 people who together represent a 360-degree view on that certain problem. And they take them for one day with facilitators through a process which goes through the head, the heart, and the hands. And eventually, they formulate next steps. And what I find very, very interesting about this methodology is that people with completely opposite views sit together in a room and find each other on a certain common ground. So maybe you have somebody from Shell sitting to somebody next to somebody from Greenpeace. And because they are brought through this process, they find each other on a common ground. Because eventually we are all people living on this planet. And then they start thinking about next steps from this place of common ground. And that I find very interesting, because it might be solutions which we didn't thought of already. And for us it's very important that of course, so this swarm can start up working on these next steps. But to be able for them to keep on doing this, they need to make a living out of it. Because if they cannot earn money with it, then they will probably stop after a couple of months. So that's why we thought, okay, we need to add a business model to it and let these people from the swarm work on the next steps and then create a business out of it. We call these businesses pop-up companies. This is our plan, and for us it's only the beginning. We need to start doing it, improving it, and see what happens. Everyone here has a unique combination of experiences, ideas, and expertise, and we would happily like to invite you to join. On the 20th of November, we're going to kick off this way of organizing ourselves in a swarm. And we would like to invite you to become part of the swarm and unravel these problems and make these lists with next steps and start pop-up companies and see what happens. Imagine this society full of entrepreneurs working on these world problems and making a living out of this. This is where I would like my two girls grow up in. Thank you very much.